noticed from my other vlog, I just finished filming for the Femara side effects. I just wanted to talk to you guys about a little bit of something that's kind of personal to me. It's just some frustrations that I find that I have on a regular basis with trying to conceive, and I know a lot of people out there can probably relate to this. I was thinking a lot about this weekend, just, talking to you guys about some of my frustrations with trying to conceive and posting that on YouTube. So a lot of the frustrations that I go through involve people, a lot of people who do understand the struggle of trying to conceive, but then a lot of people who don't, and the advice that they like to give. And in no way do I want this vlog to be negative, because I don't feel like it's really a negative thing. I think, the topic of miscarriage, the topic of trying to get pregnant and struggling, is kind of a weird topic for people to talk about, because so many people get pregnant on accident. So many people don't have problems, and so I think for a lot of people, it is kind of hard for them to, listen to you talk about it and try to offer advice. I don't really think a lot of people know the adequate words to say to somebody who's struggling or has lost. I don't think there are adequate words. So I don't want this to be negative. It's really not. I know that people, when they love you and they care about you, they try their best to, offer you advice that they think is going to help. And maybe it's just my personality. But some of the things that I struggle with, a lot of people like to say, just relax, it'll happen. And that's difficult for me because, as you guys know who are trying to conceive, for a lot of us, it doesn't just happen. And for a lot of us, it has happened and we've lost our babies. And so we're put right back to where we started. We try and try and try to get pregnant. And some of us try for 5 years, 10 years. Some of us are blessed and try for a year or less. But regardless, we try. We track our cycles. We take OPKs. However you want to do it. Some people don't do all that stuff. But in your mind, you're still trying. You still want that baby. And so when you're in that mind frame, it's really hard to just relax and just let it happen. Because, for a lot of us, trying to conceive and having to, be intimate on a schedule, basically, that's not natural, so you don't just relax and it'll happen. Not for me, anyway. A lot of people might have that experience, but not for me. I have a very busy schedule. My husband has a very busy schedule. We both work. We're both in school. I only do part-time classes because I already have my career going, but, we're pretty busy people, and I work 13-hour shifts, so that makes trying to conceive, you really have to plan it. You really have to plan around your schedule, and that's hard to do when your body, is going to do what it's going to do on its own time frame. So that really bugs me when people say, just relax, it'll happen, and especially when you've had losses. I've been pregnant already. I've been pregnant twice already. And it did happen, and it didn't work out. And so it's almost insulting. And like I said, not to be negative, because, those people are really trying to help and offer advice. But, in a way, it is kind of insulting a little bit when people say that, because I can't just relax and it'll happen. I am a planner by nature. I'm very type A. I never wanted to be surprised. I always knew that I would plan when it was time to have a baby. And of course, nature does its own thing, and we're not in control of that, but that's just me. I don't just relax, it'll happen. I just take initiative and I do what I can do to try to get there. And in that, it's stressful. It's very stressful, and you guys know that. Trying to conceive is very stressful. And that leads me to my second point. People saying, you need to relax, you need to not be so stressed out. And again, that kind of goes with the first point. It's hard to do, when you have to plan, to try to get pregnant. You have to work around your life, try to work with your body, and sometimes your body doesn't do what you would like for it to do. Like I said, we've lost 2 babies, so it's hard. Something that I'll never forget, when we were pregnant the second time, and if you guys have watched my vlog about our story, which I kind of want to redo that one because it was my first vlog and I'm very tired, so it wasn't super detailed, but anyway, when we were pregnant the second time, we had a heartbeat, it was low, and when we went back a week later for the follow-up ultrasound and the baby had passed away, the technician that we had did both my ultrasounds. And anyway, so when we were in the ultrasound room, she was doing the ultrasound, and of course she said, I can't tell you anything, I can't say one way or the other, but you can see that there's no heartbeat. You can see that because you saw it last week. And of course I lost it and cried, and and I don't cry in front of people, so it was kind of a weird situation, but understandable, of course. But she said to me, you need to relax, because basically in a roundabout way she said, because I was so stressed, it was making my body reject my babies, is basically what she said, and it's been several months, and everything kind of was a blur, and I didn't really think about it too much at the time, but that's basically what she said to me. And you don't say that to people who have just lost a baby. You don't say that, even if that's your opinion, which I don't believe it's fact, because I've talked to my doctor, about those fears. When you lose a baby, you blame yourself. Well, did I eat something? Did I not sleep enough? Was I too stressed? Was I too busy? What did I do wrong? And my doctor told me, you did not do anything wrong. It's natural to be stressed. It's natural to worry about your baby. And it's okay, unless you were in some kind of life-threatening crisis, the little amount of stress that we undergo isn't enough to really cause a problem. And so I know that it wasn't me. But that's what she said. And it really, really bothered me. You don't say that to somebody. And it was just really kind of bad timing, even though I know she was trying to help. It was not the best thing to say at that time. And so that kind of goes in with, just relax, it'll happen, you need to calm down, and people don't really get, how stressful that is to say to somebody, and I know that she, didn't mean any harm, but, it was just kind of irritating. So those are the first 2. You can't just relax. And you can't stop worrying about your baby once you are pregnant, especially not when you've had miscarriages before. And anybody who's had them knows that you can't not worry. It's built into your nature a little bit, especially when you've tried so hard to have a baby. My third frustration, and one of my biggest frustrations, I'm really surprised I didn't think of this one first, when people say, when you talk to them about miscarriage. And for some reason they love to say, it just wasn't your time. And that really, really bothers me, And like I said, I don't want to be negative because, nobody wants to watch a negative vlog. Nobody wants to listen to me complain, but it's kind of like, this is reality for people who have had miscarriage and people who are trying to conceive. This is reality, and these are things we go through every day. And I don't know how many times I've heard, it just wasn't your time, there's another plan for you, and stuff like that, and I don't believe that. I don't think that way. I feel like, I'm a nurse, I'm a healthcare professional, I kind of feel like when you lose a baby, odds are, if there was nothing wrong with you, there was something wrong with the baby. That's your body doing what it's supposed to do. It doesn't make it any better, but that's nature, And when people say, well, it just wasn't your time, it'll happen when it's time, that really hurts me, because in my mind, that's like somebody telling you, well, your babies, those 2 babies that you had, that you were pregnant with, that were a part of you even for such a short amount of time, they weren't meant to be. They weren't meant to be here, and that hurts, because those are my babies. And nothing will change that. Just because they're not here doesn't mean that they're not my babies and my husband's babies. And, there are people out there who get pregnant on accident, that do drugs, that drink, that are in poverty, that are going through so many things, that have no problems, that don't have miscarriages. And so, it's like, how can you tell me that it wasn't my baby's time, but it was theirs, when they really, might not be in a position to have a child. And that's not to say that they aren't. That could totally be the thing that turns someone's life around. I do believe that positive happens for a lot of people, but there's so many children who are abused, so many children who go into, foster care, they're orphaned because their parents just don't care. There's just so much that you hear in the world, so many people who don't treat their kids the way that children need to be treated. And how can you say that it was their time but not mine? When I have so much love to give and we've done everything right. So that's a big, when people say that to me, I don't really have a response. I kind of just acknowledge what they said and move on, but I don't really have a response. Because that hurts. It really does. And like I said, I know they mean well. For a lot of people, that might be a comforting thought. It really might. For me, it's not, so it's nothing personal. These are just my own frustrations with trying to conceive. And, it is what it is for me. So those are 3 of my biggest things. And then, of course, you just have all the little stuff, like, for whatever reasons, I work on the weekends. That's primarily my schedule. And it seems like I always ovulate on a weekend, which I guess would make sense because, my cycles are very regular. Every month they're very regular. I use 2 different apps. I use My Days and I use the First Response app, and to track them. And they're pretty much 26 days on the dot every month. And I usually ovulate around the same time, day 13 or 14. So I'm very blessed in that department. The unfortunate part is, because my work schedule is the same every week, I always seem to ovulate on a weekend. And I work night shift, and my husband works day shift, and we work on the weekends. But so that means that, you guys can figure that part out. If I'm working at night and he's working during the day, there's not too much going on there. Especially when you have to come home and sleep, because you have to get back up and just do the same thing over again. So that's a struggle. Just the normal trying to conceive stuff. But the first 3 things, I hope that this vlog wasn't too negative. And I guess that's it, guys. But I just wanted to touch base with you guys and share some of my feelings and everything. So I hope everyone's having a good day. And I hope that, those of you out there trying to conceive, I hope that you got something from this, because I know, my friends who have been through similar things, we can relate. And so I really hope that, some of you guys can relate, because it's a common struggle for us all. And everyone has their own beliefs and, about how things should work out and why they work out and everything. But, I know a lot of people kind of struggle with similar things. So anyway, I'm yakking on, but I'm going to go ahead and end the vlog and get out of here and go to school. So I hope everyone is having a great day. Thank you so much for watching, and stick around for more updates.